would like to get to some few examples that you brought in the book. We had interviewed more recently a biographer in Ernest Hemingway, and clear to her that the character, the Jewish character that he put into the book, was clearly a function, was a friend of his, but was clearly a function of anti-Semitism. On the other hand, we did do an interview on Chaucer, and that we interviewed made the claim, not 100%, that one could look at what was written by Chaucer as just an expression, because there were so many different voices that Chaucer presented, a multitude of voices. That voice just represented what was happening in reality at the time and really wasn't anti-Semitism. So necessarily anti-Semitism. So again, some examples perhaps that might resonate with our audience, and what kind of works are incorrectly designated as anti-Semitic, in your opinion?
Well, I mean, there are always two arguments that are used in relation to works where there's a kind of prima facie case that they're anti-Semitic. The first argument is the work is not anti-Semitic in itself. It's showcasing anti-Semitism, and sometimes in the stronger version of that, it's showcasing anti-Semitism in order to expose it. And then the second argument is, well, even if it is anti-Semitic, that's not an interesting thing to say about it, because everyone was anti-Semitic in those days. And so talking about its anti-Semitism would be like talking about the kind of way in which the work was published, or the way in which the work was bound, or the quality of the paper that it was printed on. In other words, it's an irrelevant detail to do with the state of the culture, or in my analogy, the kind of state of the printing technology, and says nothing, therefore, about anything of specific interest in the work itself. So that's the second argument. First of all, in relation to the first argument, of course, it could be that in one or other case, anti-Semitism is showcased, maybe to be critiqued. And the obvious example of that is in Ulysses, in Joyce's great novel Ulysses, or in some of Robert Browning's poems. In other cases, I don't think it's possible to say that. A hotly contested text in this argument, of course, is The Merchant of Venice. I take one position on it, other serious people take another position on it, and there it is. As far as the second...
And what is your position on The Merchant?
My position is it's an anti-Semitic work.
Okay.
In fact, my position is that The Merchant of Venice reanimated literary anti-Semitism at a time when it was at risk of just being laughed out of existence by the extravagant and comic genius of Christopher Marlowe, The Jew of Malta. The second argument that the anti-Semitism is the uninteresting bit about the work, that it simply reflects its times. I think the answer to that is in two parts. The first is that literature never only reflects, it always also adds. And so even if you think that there is a strong continuity between a literary text and the, if you like, the climate of the times, it is still worth asking to what extent the text added to that climate. And the second part is actually there hasn't a time, even in the Middle Ages, but certainly not at any time thereafter, when a neutral, if not philo-Semitic, stance towards the Jews was not possible. Sorry, just to recast that ugly double negative sentence. It has always been possible to be a friend of the Jews or to be indifferent to them. The idea that there is a uniform climate, a kind of ideological conformity on the subject of the Jews actually doesn't stand up to empirical inquiry. So that's the second part of my answer.